So I'm here at Bill Black. I was wondering if you could tell me, what did you think of the banking inquiry, the limits imposed on you about the banking inquiry?
Well, the limits weren't special to me, but the limits meant that no one could actually talk about the causes of the Irish banking crisis. And since theoretically they were supposed to be investigating the causes of the Irish banking crisis, that seemed to make the whole exercise kind of strange.
Now, you're somebody who was in America, you've prosecuted bankers before. What do you think about the time limit you were given in the banking inquiry? Do you think it was a fair line of questioning that you were given or not?
Well, the questions were perfectly fine. Indeed, the questions allowed me to talk about the bailout.
Okay.
And the letter of invitation did not, so my testimony as filed didn't talk about that at all. So when I was asked about it, I of course was able to respond that it was insane, and I think I described it as the most destructive own goal in Irish financial history.
Okay. One question I was dying to know after I saw you at the banking inquiry was, we had a bailout and the promissory note deal was signed into law by Michael Noonan and then the Kenny's government. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, from an outsider's perspective, both of your major revolutionary parties are Tweedledum and Tweedledee. So it's no surprise at all in Irish history that they simply continue the policies. Obviously, some people believe the commission was an effort by the new party to blame the old party, but I don't think that was very successful, because what came out is that pretty much the power leadership in Ireland was behind the banks, and none of the powerful folks really were out to protect the Irish people.
Okay, the Irish economy is currently being championed as a success story by the government. Some people would dispute that. I'm just wondering your own opinion on this.
Well, compared to what? So compared to the European Union as a whole is still roughly 1% lower GDP than before the acute phase of this crisis. That should be a scandal that should bring down every government that supports austerity. Conversely, yes, Ireland has a much higher growth rate than the European Union. You still have ballpark 10% unemployment, which again should be considered an atrocity and an embarrassment and something that needs to be changed immediately, as opposed to wee-ha! We are the greatest successes ever. But any political party, of course, anywhere in the world would claim credit for unemployment coming down and growth rate coming up. So part of that's just politics as usual.
Okay, and very last question. How would you have suggested the banking inquiry to be run differently?
Well, again, some of the blame, a considerable amount of the blame, has to go to the Irish people who voted in a referendum not to have a real inquiry. So you go through the expense of having a fake inquiry, and I don't quite understand the point, having been through it. It was so humorous. Again, this is not evil people. People trying to do their job as given their mandate, but I was instructed that I needed to delete a substantial chunk of my testimony that tried to explain how the regulatory crisis occurred, the regulatory failure, where I used a speech by a British regulator, financial regulator, because Ireland modeled itself on the British model. So I said, if I can't talk about Ireland, let me talk about the Brits, since it was the model, and then provided a very detailed critique of why these policies, these anti-regulatory policies, were going to be disasters and that Ireland needed to move away from them. And I was told that I had to remove that from my testimony, not because of libel or slander, and not because, of course, it affected anybody's trial rights, but because if I criticized them, then they would have a right to defend themselves, and they might have to bear the expense. The parliamentary inquiry might have to bear the expense of bringing somebody from the United Kingdom to testify about how they were really wonderful regulators.
But yet they brought you.
Yet they brought me, so, it's... And I'm the only effective financial regulator that they called to testify. So certainly there must have been some things that they could have learned to benefit from the successes we had, and indeed from the failures we had. They could learn as well from those.